Joe Manchin has been on my mind recently as we've been thinking about the reconciliation bill that's coming up to be dealt with tomorrow. Well, I guess, yeah, on the 27th, they said they were going to post a vote on it, or they were going to hold a vote on it. A little bit up in the air right now, but one of the things I really can't stand is how we hear about Joe Manchin in the media and how he's portrayed by so many as being this moderate or conservative Democrat, that he's some principled guy who's out there just trying to make sure that conservative, moderate America has a voice in the Senate, so on and so forth. Let's take a little trip down and see exactly what Joe Manchin's a little bit all about. This first video here is back from right after the election, November of last year. Let's hear what he had to say about getting rid of the filibuster.
I want to lay those fears, I want to rest those fears for you right now, because when they talk about whether it be packing the courts or ending the filibuster, I will not vote to do that. I will not vote to pack the courts, and I will not vote to end the filibuster. Brett, this system, the Senate, was so unique body in the world. It was made to work together in a bipartisan way. And once you start breaking down those barriers, then you lose every reason that we are the institution that we are, the most deliberate body. So I want to lay those fears to rest, that won't happen, because I will not be the 50th Democrat voting to end that filibuster or to basically stack the court. And then all the other things you're hearing.
Can we address this really quickly here? Why do these people in Washington actually believe that anyone in America actually cares about the filibuster? I mean, even maybe they don't actually believe it, but I don't even understand how that could be a possible talking point. Like, people don't actually care whether or not Democrats and Republicans are working together. They care about whether or not things are getting done. And so, as long as things are being done, no one really cares how they get done. The filibuster staying intact is nothing more than just a way for the people in Washington not to have to pass legislation. That's all it is. It's just an obstruction. It's not actually accomplishing anything of substance. And its eradication, if you were to get rid of it, wouldn't stop people from the other side of the aisle from being able to vote. If they still wanted to be bipartisan, they could still choose to vote with the other side if they wanted to. There's nothing stopping them from that. The filibuster staying intact is not upholding some shrine of our democracy or some nonsense like that. Keep going, Joe Manchin.
The thing about Brett also is defund the police. I don't know of any of the Democrats in the caucus that are for defunding the police. We're not for that whatsoever. And when they talk about basically Medicare.
Well, he's right about that. Because was it recently when the infrastructure bill came up for votes, and the senator out of Alabama, I think it was Tommy Tuberville, tried to introduce an amendment asking if whether or not the members of the Senate wanted to vote to defund the police. All 50 Democrats did in fact vote against defunding the police. So I guess he was correct about that, which I do find a little bit strange that they would even vote on something like that, because as far as I was concerned, funding the police is a local issue, not something that people in Washington have any control over whatsoever. So it seems like more or less like a symbolic vote more than anything. So it seemed like more or less a waste of time and a wasted talking point. It's something that Washington doesn't have a whole lot of power over.
Medicare for all? We can't even pay for Medicare for some. Doesn't make any sense at all. We've got to fix the Affordable Care Act we have, and I think our moderate Republicans will work with us to now repair what needs to be repaired.
This is a whole separate conversation. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on this one, but during the primary election, there were several studies that came out that said that our current system of healthcare, the way that we are currently paying for healthcare, over the next, I believe it was the next decade, they said it would be more expensive to continue our current system than it would be if we implemented Medicare for all. Again, a conversation for another day, but I don't understand how Medicare for all is considered to be radical if it would end up being cheaper than our current system. Just want to throw that out there.
let me just clarify here, Senator. You're saying definitively tonight that even if Democrats take control and Chuck Schumer becomes the Senate Majority Leader, that they try to break the filibuster, say the filibuster is over, you will definitively vote against that?
Absolutely. I will vote against that. I've been very clear about that.
Yes, he has been very clear about that and very consistent on that, too. I mean, this is a guy who, for whatever reason, just does not want to cave on this issue. And I'm sure there's probably some reasons for that, but we'll probably get to that here in a little bit.
You don't need whether you're D or not, right? I'm a proud, moderate, conservative Democrat. Maybe there's not many of us left, but I can tell you this country wants a moderation. This country, you run your life, you run your business from the middle, not from the fringes. And that's where I've always been. So for something, whatever the message was, it was wrong for this many people to be split, for us not to be able to have a message that didn't scare the bejesus out of people. And when you're talking about basically Green New Deal and all this socialism, that's not who we are as a Democratic Party. It's not how I was raised in West Virginia. It's not the Democrats I know.
Okay, let's stop the Joe Manchin talking here. That's not the Democrats I know. That's not the West Virginia I grew up in. Oh my God. Okay. First of all, the Green New Deal is not socialism. I'm starting to wonder how many people have actually read this thing. This isn't actually a long bill at all. I mean, the Green New Deal is all of 14 pages long. I read it within a matter of minutes earlier this year before I did my episode on the Green New Deal, which is, online. You can find that Apple Podcast, Spotify. I don't understand why it keeps getting thrown into this bubble of being socialism. Socialism would dictate that the Green New Deal is saying that that the government wants to take over the means of energy production, but that's not what it calls for whatsoever. It just calls for us as a nation to invest more into green technology, not to take over the means of production. That's not at all what it's talking about. But yeah, if those who are interested, it's actually right here on my screen. You can go look this up for yourself. Was it HR 109? It's just recognizing the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal. It's super quick. Like, I can scroll through it here in a matter of seconds. So this is all it is. That's it. You can read that in a couple minutes, no problem. It's not that long, not that complicated. But if you want a more detailed kind of picture of it, Vox did a video on the Green New Deal a little while back. Here's a little bit, just a little clip of it, because again, where is this confusion coming from with the Green New Deal?
This is the Green New Deal resolution. It's only 14 pages. And to understand what's in it, it's important to understand what's not.
It is not a bill. It's not legislation. It's not a policy proposal. It's not anything that you could pass and make law.
This is my colleague, David Roberts. Dave's written a lot about the Green New Deal, and he says the 14-page resolution is just a first step.
The idea was, what's our shared understanding of the problem and what's necessary to solve it?
The Green New Deal contains basically two big ideas. The first is this question of what we need to do to solve the impending climate crisis. The Green New Deal says what climate scientists say. We need to completely stop burning fossil fuels as much as technologically feasible.
So that means things like rethinking vehicles, energy efficiency standards for buildings, changing the ways that we make steel and concrete.
That's Rihanna Gunn Wright. She's part of the think tank that came up with the Green New Deal.
Policy director of New Consensus.
Rihanna writes policy, and she likes to rattle off things that moving away from fossil fuels will entail.
Moving to electric vehicles, make that home energy efficient. The food that you buy will be grown locally.
The Green New Deal requires building a lot of new things, the things to power the world without fossil fuels. And that'll create new jobs, new industries, an entire new economy. But Rihanna also emphasizes that this is going to inflict a cost.
And that's where the second part of the Green New Deal comes in, is where they talk about the cost of doing all of these things, which is that you're going to be taking current energy workers and you're going to be having them be unemployed then because they won't have those jobs. And so the government should step in and just, during those people's transition, make sure they have access to healthcare, make sure they have some kind of a job, just make sure that those people are taken care of. That's it. That's basically the Green New Deal. It's acknowledging that climate change is happening and then the government investing into different sectors of the economy that will allow us to just move forward towards like green energy in different ways, and then making sure that workers are protected, people who were going to be displaced by not having these jobs anymore. Not sure where in their socialism lies, but anyway. But maybe Joe Manchin's against the Green New Deal for other reasons. Maybe he has some other interests that might be impacted by the Green New Deal or by us moving away from coal, other forms of current fossil fuels. We look at The Intercept here. The Intercept did a great piece on him recently, Joe Manchin's Dirty Empire. So I came into contact with this after watching a video that Kyle Kalinske made. I'm actually going to reference that here in a second. But if we come to this little spot in the article right here, Manchin's claim that climate pollution would be worsened by the elimination of fossil fuels or by the resolution's actual, more incremental climate provisions is highly dubious, if not outright false. What would unquestionably be impacted, however, is Manchin's own personal wealth. So, though Manchin's motivations are often ascribed to the conservative, coal-friendly politics of West Virginia, it is also the case that the state's senior senator is heavily invested in the industry and owes much of his considerable fortune to it. And so they basically go on to talk about exactly, as you can see here on the screen, how exactly he's involved in this and how much money he's going to be making and also had made. And then what companies particularly he's been involved in, and that Manchin did not respond to multiple requests, for comment, because why would you? It's not exactly what you're going to do after you have someone legitimately do real reporting on these issues for a change. So shouts out to The Intercept for doing some real reporting on this. But, after this article, after I came into contact with this, it really raised a lot of questions for me, because I knew that Joe Manchin was overseeing the climate provisions in the reconciliation bill, which is how I started out this conversation. The reconciliation bill has green energy provisions within it, which are, again, coming up for a vote, or so they're supposed to be this week. So this reconciliation bill had to be thrown through several different committees. And one of those committees is being headed by Joe Manchin. He is heading a committee in the Senate that's supposed to oversee green energy, or supposed to oversee energy. And so let's take a listen here to what Kyle said about basically this reporting and how it ties into Manchin's position in the Senate.
So I want to make this as simple for people as possible. Manchin is making millions of dollars off of fossil fuels. At the same time, he sits on the committee that's going to decide what we do with energy and climate change in the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. This is such a conflict of interest, you need to come up with a new term to describe how bad this conflict of interest is. He directly profits from dirty energy and fossil fuels. So do you think this guy is really going to make the decisions that would negatively impact his own companies, but also happen to move us in the correct direction when it comes to climate change and when it comes to pollution? There's no way he's going to do that. There's no way he's going to be taking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars out of his own pocket, and he's going to take it away from his family. Obviously, he's not going to do it. Now,
it doesn't just stop there, though, because it's not just about this particular case, about this particular thing that's going on currently. It's not just about coal in West Virginia. This has also been going on in other ways, because Joe Manchin has been taking money from other places. In fact, let's look at this CNBC article. This is back from June. In June, CNBC says Joe Manchin is opposing big parts of Biden's agenda as Koch network pressures him. So the Koch network, which I'm sure most of us know who they are and what they do, The Koch network has actively been pressuring Democratic Senator Joe Manchin to oppose key legislation items linked to Biden's agenda, including filibuster reform. They want to try too hard there. We already heard what he said about that. And voting rights legislation. Okay, go a little bit further down here. That lobbying effort appears to be paying off, as Manchin in a recent op-ed wrote that he opposed ending the filibuster and that he would not vote for the People Act, which advocates say would limit influence on big donors on elections. So let me just wrap this up really quickly here with this last one here. This comes from Reuters. This is also back in April, where it says that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce rewards Senators Joe Manchin and also Kyrsten Sinema for opposing Biden's initiatives, where they apparently doled out thousands of dollars to people who voted against certain things, including ending the filibuster. So Joe Manchin is making lots of money off of keeping the filibuster in place, off of trying to nix certain things out of our legislative agenda, including anything involving green energy, because he's profiting off of that. He is against the For the People Act, which when you dig into that, just boosts voting rights in several different forms, including eliminating states' ability to unnecessarily purge people of voter rolls. It eliminates partisan gerrymandering, so I think it brings it to the federal level. It also strengthens voting by mail, and then makes there be a national standard for early voting. So he is generating lots of wealth off of these key decisions that he's making. So the next time that you hear in the media that Joe Manchin is he's just a moderate, he's just a conservative Democrat, he's from West Virginia, he has to vote this way. He doesn't have to vote any of these ways. He is making lots of money to vote these ways. He is a pure definition of corruption. Joe Manchin is corrupt. Joe Manchin is corrupt. That is the reason why he's doing these things. That is his motivation. I want everyone to understand that the next time that you hear the media largely trying to talk about how Joe Manchin is just a moderate, just trying to keep the party from going too far left. No, he's trying to get paid, and he is getting paid.